Hey, what's up guys, Exalted here, and in today's video what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you guys a bunch of tips to help you improve your gameplay when it comes to Zone Wars. Now, because it does place you with random players, there's a really large skill differential between the different players. I think it would be super interesting to implement a rank system so that players could play against opponents similar to their level, which would help you guys improve quicker. But really quickly, I wanted to give a huge shout out to one of the Silver Gaming editors, CK, for actually creating the Zone Wars trailer with Epic Games. So huge congrats to him. But with all of that being said, make sure you guys are following me on Twitter, and let's get straight into the tips and tricks. So just for some background, this Zone Wars LTM, you get placed on a map of your choice with 16 other random players. From there, you're going to go ahead and play 5 rounds, and whoever wins the most of those 5 rounds will actually win the entire thing. Winning a Zone Wars game can be really easy, but you have to take it in certain steps. I'm going to give Zone Wars an early game, a mid game, and a late game just so it's easy to talk about. So let's get straight into the first part, the early game of Zone Wars. So in the early game of Zone Wars, you're going to spawn with a random loadout, and in some of them, you will have an option to pick up a 6th item if you want to replace one of the inventory slots that you currently have. After that, you're going to go ahead and break out and start fighting. Now, in the very beginning, all the players are going to be fairly spread out along the map, and the zone is going to be pretty large. This is a great opportunity to find players near you that you can easily try to pick off and get the kill on. I try to be most aggressive early game because there are less people in a small area, so you won't get third-partied as much. But that also brings in another tip. Make sure that whenever you are box fighting or fighting an opponent, you always are completely boxed up so that you don't get third-partied by other players. Now, once the next few zones start to show up for you, you're going to want to make early rotations to the circle. If you want to play really aggressive, you can go ahead and kill players and hope that you get enough shields to maintain yourself throughout the game. But most players, you're going to want to be playing safe. You're going to be tunneling all the way to zone, or you're going to be using your launch pads, or even your launch pads with the angled ramps above you so that you don't get shot out of the air, because the maps really are not that large. Once you have made it to zone, hopefully you are one of the first people to make it to zone. You can go ahead and look behind you and look for players and try to laser them as they are rotating to zone after you. This is probably going to be your safest way to get consistent kills and to survive till late game. But at the same time, this isn't a tournament, so there are going to be some players that are W keying you for absolutely no reason, trying to kill you, like I said, for no reason along your way of your rotation. But at the same time, this isn't a tournament, so there are going to be players pushing you for no reason and trying to kill you while you are rotating to zones and just minding your own business. In these situations, if you do not want to take the fight, instead of holding turbo build, because of the 50-50 coin flip, you will lose your wall. So the best way to disengage this situation is to just build more boxes. You can always get a lot of mats by farming natural materials on the map or by killing other players. On top of that, you could also use impulse nades or launch pads to disengage the situation as well. Now, you could always take the fight if you're confident in winning the fight, but if you want to just play for the win, your best bet is going to be just simply playing it safe. Now, for the players that want to play a lot more aggressively, if you're the person that wants to get high kill wins, you're not worried about winning, you're more worried about getting more kills, I'm going to talk about what you need to do early and mid game to set yourself up for late game. So for you aggressive players, your early game is going to consist of getting your mats and getting your loadout off spawn as quickly as possible and immediately breaking out. Depending on the map, you can do multiple things. Right when you break out, you can either build straight up, make sure you are as connected as possible so you can get really early high ground on your opponents. Second, depending on the map, you can also look for the areas where there are natural high ground and run straight towards the natural high ground and build up from there. This high ground advantage will make it much safer for you to survive, but it will also give you really good angle and views on opponents. Moving on to mid-game, for the more aggressive players, you can do one of two things. You can maintain high ground if you are getting kills and you have the mats to do so, or what you could do is you could stay at the very back of the rotation, kind of towards Storm, and just stay behind players and kill them as they have their back towards you and they are running to Storm. This is a really easy way to get a lot of kills. And also another tip, don't be afraid to take Storm damage. For the most part, Storm only ticks for about 5s during mid-game, so you can take a lot of Storm damage, and when you kill someone, you get 50 health back. It's a really easy way to catch opponents off guard and get really easy kills. Finally, this brings us to Endgame. Now, whether you're an aggressive player or you're just playing for the win, you're going to be playing endgame for the most part the same. To make sure that you are ready for endgame, there are a few mistakes that a lot of players make, and that is not conserving their mats early on. It's strictly going to be box fighting, as it is a lot more mat efficient. This way, when you do make it to endgame, you will have plenty of mats to use to your disposal to secure yourself the win. One huge mistake that a lot of players make during the endgame situation, where there are only 2 or 3 total players left, is they end up getting into these creative build fights. You're not going to want to do that. This will end up making you go way too high into the air, and if you don't have a way to get down like shockwaves or a launch pad, you can safely assume you're most likely going to die. In these endgame situations, you're simply going to want to stay pretty low to the ground. In my opinion, usually low ground during endgame situations will usually win, and you can see that in one of the examples of the background gameplay. So you're going to want to make sure that you're playing really slow, you're just boxing up, following the storm, and editing and looking for peak shots on your opponent. If you have more health than your opponent and you have a campfire, you can always go for a heal off, but you're mainly going to want to wait until the opponent makes moves on you, because you can counter them with smart edits really easily. If you are the player that has high ground during these endgame zones and you are super high into the air where you will die from fall damage, you're going to want to tarp down so you can get to a more safe level. And to get angles on your opponents, instead of building directly over them, you're going to want to build off to the sides and make kind of L formations with your high ground building. That way you can get really good angles on your opponent, you can spray at them while they edit into a new box, and you can ultimately just spray through their builds at your opponent, and you can set yourself up to predict where your opponent is going to go and get an easy kill on them as well. So either way, when it comes to late game, you're just going to want to be playing really slow, you're going to want to be playing smart, and you're going to want to make sure you are not too high in the air. If you do find yourself high in the air, there are several things that you can do to secure yourself a win. There's nothing wrong with dropping down from a build fight and just boxing up from there, as it forces the other player to play aggressively, and there are a lot of great moves that you can do when you are playing defensive. So to sum everything up, when it comes to early game, you're going to either want to go for that natural high ground, or you're going to want to take a really quick fight off spawn to hopefully improve your loadout. When it comes to mid game, you're going to want to be the first one to circle so you can go ahead and shoot other players rotating, but if you want to play more aggressive, you can be the last one to circle and you can shoot players in the back as they are rotating. Once you finally make it to late game, hopefully you have maintained enough mats to last yourself, and you can take advantage of this by playing really slowly, making sure you don't get into build fights, and just staying low to the ground. From here, you can shoot and spray out the players above you, hopefully getting really easy peak shots, ultimately winning you the Zone Wars game. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that sub button. I would really appreciate it. And with all of that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.